This episode of the MOR Cast is entitled Perception. The Cambridge Dictionary defines perception as an awareness of things through physical lenses, especially sight. Let's talk about perception today. Have you ever had an experience where your perception was off? Like you believed something wholeheartedly based on your vantage point. After further investigation, realized that you were absolutely wrong. Quite a few years ago, I was involved in a car accident and was required to go to the collision center and then the approved rental car company to pick up a rental car. When I arrived, I spoke to the manager and he informed me that the rental car company had absolutely no cars left. They only had SUVs. Now at this time, I'd never driven an SUV before. This was quite a few years ago when SUVs were huge, not like today, where there are 3 different sizes and most of them are small or just mid-sized cars. So when the manager told me he only had SUVs, and I looked at the lot and found he was right, I was skittish. From my vantage point, it looked impossible. When I considered the size of the vehicle and my inexperience in driving a car that size, I thought, I can't do this. It was an SUV, but for me, it might as well have been an 18-wheeler. He must have seen the fear in my face because he began to encourage me. Needless to say, his encouragement was falling on deaf ears because I did not feel like I could do it. The more he said I could, the more I heard I can't. He began to tell me that his wife was about my size and she also was skeptical when he purchased an SUV. This was probably a good tactic for him to get me into the car, but I was not convinced. He said, once you get in, you will see. It's not as bad as you think, and you'll be looking down on everyone else, giving you an advantage. Of course, this didn't convince me either. So, he said, just do me a favor. Just sit in the driver's seat. I got in reluctantly and realized he was correct. I was looking down on other vehicles. However, I still didn't think I would be able to do it. Finally, he said, you're going to love it. And when it's time for you to return it, you're not going to want to give it up. After settling the paperwork, I got in, I started the engine, and I drove off the lot thinking, oh my goodness, this is a lot of car. And saying, I think I can do this, I think I can do this, I think I can do this. Eventually realized I am doing this. I drove that SUV for a few weeks before the collision center fixed my car. And when the insurance company called to notify me that my car was ready, I was not ready to give up that SUV. I took it back, but I felt like I was giving up a prized possession. I'd gotten very accustomed to that ride, to seeing from that vantage point. The manager of the rental car company was absolutely correct. I was sold on an SUV, and no one pitched a sale. After this, I never wanted another car. I wanted an SUV, except we weren't in the market for a new car just yet. It was a real adjustment to get back in the swing of driving my car, because this experience changed my perception. Prior to driving the SUV, My perception was I could not do it because I was too small and it was mammoth size. But when I allowed myself to get into the driver's seat, I could see it from a different perspective. In life, perception is everything. Many times, we assess things incorrectly because of our perception. We see it from our limited vantage point and then make the decision. This is what I did. If I had perceived the SUV as just a vehicle, I would not have felt like it was a daunting task. But because I perceived it from a position that I couldn't do it because it was too big and I was too small, it took a lot of coercion to even get me into the driver's seat. My question is, what have you perceived as too difficult, too big, impossible for you to do? Today, I'm inviting you to just get in that driver's seat, to stare down that fear, to change your perspective, to look at it from a different vantage point. Go back and look at it again. What are you looking at incorrectly? Allow yourself to have a perception shift. And remember, you can do this. My perception was limiting me and determining my trajectory about that rental car. How have you limited yourself? Today, I'm challenging you to take the limits off. Get in the driver's seat, sis. You can do it. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the MOR Cast on perception. Remember, perception is an awareness of things through the physical lenses, especially through your sight. It's how you look at something. If you feel defeated or like you cannot do it, it's your perception of it. You've got to change your perspective. It's exactly what I had to do. I had to look in the face of the fear of driving that SUV. I had to allow myself to be coerced to get in that driver's seat. And once I did, I got a different perspective. And you can too. Change your perspective. I'm challenging you today to look at that task that looks so daunting, that thing that you've been putting off so long, saying that you can't do it, and stare it down. Get in that driver's seat and do it. If you enjoy the MOR Cast, don't forget to share it with someone else. Chat with me on Twitter or become a supporter. Until next time.